The following story is also available as a read-only version. Check the link in the description if you're interested.
There was once a good man. He loved his wife and children and worked hard to give them the best life possible. Whenever his spouse was worried, he listened to her concerns, even if sometimes he considered them petty. Every time she cooked for him, he let her know how much he loved the food and how much he loved her. When his children had trouble with their homework, he helped them as often as he could. When his mother needed a handyman to fix something that was broken in her house, he would drive over and help her, enjoying the crusty apple pie of his childhood. He was a good neighbor, a trustworthy fellow, and a reliable friend. When his country was attacked by the most insidious of threats, he left his lucrative profession to enlist because he wanted to protect his family, his neighborhood, and his nation. He fought in battle, never enjoying the taking of life but understanding the necessity of defending oneself. When he was reassigned to a military compound, he was able to relocate his family there. It was sad that he had to pull his children away from the environment they knew, but the school here was excellent. Dealing with prisoners of war was difficult and required commitment by those of the strongest moral fiber. Still, the good man was glad when they reassigned him to exterminating the vermin, even if it required the handling of dangerous gas. The good man, having become a respected officer, died when the enemy stormed the compound he and his family inhabited, falling to the bayonet of a young man who was himself good. The good man had come to this foreign land in response to an invasion of his own country. Disgusting things had been done to him and his people by the foreigners. Rape, murder, genocide were only a few of the items on the list of atrocities committed, and though the good man had lived far away from all this horror, he, unlike many of his friends, had been happy to be drafted for military service. The people of this land believed terrible things. Mutual respect, fairness, and camaraderie were foreign concepts to them. They had no solidarity for the underprivileged, and adored their oppressors instead of giving power to those who would liberate them from their yoke. The war had been difficult, but his people had been victorious. Having seen the horrors committed by the foreigners, the good man realized that ideas such as theirs must never be allowed to take root in his own country, lest they corrupt the good thing they had built there. It was his duty to protect his family, friends, and everyone else from the festering influence that these lies could have on them, because he had seen the horrors they would cause, and he wished that no one else would have to face such trauma. Being a good man, he took upon himself the task of overseeing the internment of those who would threaten the stability of the system he served. It was not the kind of work he enjoyed, but that was a sacrifice he was willing to make for the people he loved. With every new prisoner sent into his camp, he had hoped that they could be converted from their corruption. Alas, almost none of them were, and most died toiling in the mines and fields. The good man saw no reason why his fellow comrades should shoulder the cost of keeping those alive who would do them harm with their ideas, and thus he approved. One day, the good man was sent to another foreign land, as part of a grand plan to fight a much darker kind of corruption, one that had always eaten at the borders of his own country. It was a place of hot deserts and frigid mountain ranges, and the locals, animated by this foreign corruption, refused to understand the good man's reason for being there. Only months after his arrival, he was killed while surveying a field by a sniper who was himself a good man. The good man was protecting his country from these heathen invaders. Not only did he have a family to protect with his own body if necessary, but a clergy to serve. God had given him and many others a divine mission, and it was a mission any good man would be willing to fulfill. It was a righteous thing, a liberation he would do his part in bringing to the world, so everyone could live in the glory of God, and nobody would have to suffer as the heathens did. Heathens like these invaders, who had come to his country to oppress his people and to exterminate their faith in God. Feeling happy about having killed one of the commanders of these alien tyrants, he went home to his wife and took her as God commanded, for she was his property to cherish and do with as he pleased. After all, he would die for her safety at any moment. Years ago, she would have protested his advances, but after decades of being taken by her husband, the good man, the woman had even stopped crying. She gave the good man 7 sons and 4 daughters, all of which required shepherding and discipline so they would learn the right path to God and become the upstanding, pious people the good man hoped that they would become. To this end, the good man beat his children with a rod, as his father had done to him, and his grandfather had done to his father. He knew why the children cried, and remembered having cried himself, but he understood now that this was the only way to instill good, moral values in his offspring. Over the years, the good man killed many more of the invaders, taking their spoils and giving them to the poor. Eventually they were driven out, as God had promised they would, and the good man was optimistic. He knew, however, that the people who had armed him in the first place were themselves heathens, and just as evil as the invaders. They had exploited the good man and his friends for their own nefarious purposes, and though those had been aligned with the holy will of God at the time, that time was now over. The good man resolved to meet with the leader of the foreigners who had given him weapons, determined to assassinate him and end his manipulation of the land and people he had sworn to protect. But he was killed before he could ever draw his own gun by someone who had seen through his ruse and was himself a good man. The good man was not even a killer, but a healer by training. He had saved a great many lives on the battlefield. Once, in the war, his hospital tent had been full of wounded soldiers when it came under enemy fire. The good man himself had, at grave risk to his own body, picked up a rifle and beaten back the enemy through sheer force of bravery. Ever since that day he had known that God would protect him if he would only live by his laws and do his will. He returned to his own country a hero, but instead of resting on his laurels, he continued his dedication to saving lives by teaching the next generation of medical professionals. Thanks to his relentless work ethic and patience, many more students persevered under him than anyone else, because the good man had an eye for spotting their brilliance, even when others did not. Many of his students went on to become important doctors in their own fields, but they always came back to their mentor for advice, which the good man was happy to give. But a shadow was cast over his life one day. His son, once a God-fearing young man who had grown up to be everything his father had wanted him to become, and who on any other day would have filled the good man's heart with pride, had revealed a terrible secret. Even though he was a man, he wanted to take no wife, but instead to live with a man, maybe even make him his husband, if the laws of the land would ever allow it. The good man comforted his wife as she cried, but truly knew that he only had himself to blame. Yes, he had always followed the laws of God, but he'd spent so much time abroad that his son had practically been raised by his mother and grandmother alone, without a strong fatherly influence in his life. Was it a surprise that he had become a homosexual? Anxious to correct his mistake, not wanting his beloved son damned to hell, the good man set out to do what he did best, to heal his son of this sickness that had taken root inside his soul. Many nights did the good man spend searching for a cure, treating with professional colleagues and clergymen of great repute. In the end, the cure he found was not one he wished to administer, but the only one that was proven to work. With a heavy heart, the good man collected some of his closest friends and intercepted his son, whom he loved dearly, on his way to work. It was difficult to undress, weigh, and measure the struggling man even after he had been strapped down, but everything had to be done in accordance to proper medical procedure, lest his son suffer any ill side effects. Carefully, the good man placed the electrodes on his son's chest, made sure the right voltage was selected, and sent shocks through his body. Some hours later, the son he loved so dearly was dead, and the good man, consumed by grief and guilt about his own failing to save his son, drank until the sun rose again in the morning, got the handgun from his desk, and took his own life.
If you liked this story and would like to hear more, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. A new short story is uploaded every Wednesday, and there will occasionally be another one in between if I find the time. Thank you very much for listening and have a great day.